Hello and welcome to the Empire of the Kop Podcast. We've got the Kopites Mick Moran here, our very own Peter Kenny-Jones, and there's a debut for fellow Empire man Liam Toher. How are we all doing, gents? It has been a wild morning of transfer news. Let's just kick things off really with Jordan Henderson and Fabinho. What else were we going to talk about? So the timeline for those watching this who I don't know where you've been. Have you not spotted this news? But David Ornstein popped up with the announcement that Jordan Henderson is leaning towards accepting an offer from Saudi Pro League outfit Al-Ettifaq, which would quadruple his current salary, going to £700,000 a week. Gerrard pushing for a move. Then, rather bizarrely, the news came out that the cheeky buggers were pushing for a free transfer, even though his contract isn't due to expire for another 2 years. Romano then follows it up by reporting that Liverpool don't want to sell him for free and want £10 million, which seems extraordinarily low. But this has been since disputed by Dominic King, who has said that no fee has been set by Liverpool, understandably. And you can absolutely be sure that £10 million won't be a realistic figure for Liverpool, who don't sell players at a cut price. Mick, I'm gonna come to you first here on this one. It's we haven't even touched Fabinho, but I feel that we almost need to just devote one segment at least just to Jordan Henderson alone, because the amount of dispute that's already come out online around the story, it absolutely boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm sure all the lads are the same. I don't know where to begin. I'm kind of the new, because I was saying to you before we started recording about we've been fed on what seems like scraps. It was only yesterday I done a quick pod and I was talking about lactate tests. That's how bottom of the barrel it was getting, and all of a sudden you get the Hendo news, you get the Fabinho news, and then you get the Nunes grenade thrown in as well for good measure. The Henderson stuff's mad. When I first seen it, I was like, I'm sure like the rest of us, I didn't know how. I kind of didn't believe it, because I thought, well, there's no way he's went away and got himself in the best shape ever. Like Mo Salah and Robbo are giving him loads of compliments on his newfound six-pack and all that, just to come back. And I thought he was in the mindset to come back. He's got himself in the best shape. He saw we've bought McAllister, Szoboszlai. He knows he's got a fight on his hands to get back in the squad. And then this kind of comes rumbling out of nowhere. And it's hard to... It's weird to process it, weirdly, because he's been here for so long. He's part of the furniture, and obviously he's declined over the years. I think everyone can accept that he's not going to be a first-team player. I'm sure... I don't know how frank the conversations with Jurgen Klopp have been, but I'm sure he's been told that with the new players coming in, he's not going to be playing anywhere near as much as he's going to. And I think everyone can see that he would have took the Milner role, I suppose, as a backup. But I suppose that's not kind of fed well into what he wants. Obviously, Gerrard going to Saudi, this deal's kind of came to fruition, it seems like, and I suppose it's up to him. If he wants to go, I'll be gutted personally, just because I think he's such a massive person. When he gets on the field, I know his abilities waned quite a lot, but in terms of what he can see behind the scenes, and I think just because we don't see it, what the players say, what the manager says, the amount of stuff that he does in behind the scenes, the intangibles, all the leadership qualities that he's been done it, won everything, lifted everything, that type of thing can't be a price can't be put on that, if you know what I mean. So I think losing that is massive. But if it's something that he wants to happen, then there's pretty much nothing else we can do. We then have to be as proactive as we have been up to now and get people in as quickly as possible.
No, absolutely. I want to touch on something you said there about sort of reduced minutes. I think it was already going to be expected, Liam, wasn't it? We brought in Dominic Szoboszlai. The way the Liverpool's midfield is sort of evolving, I think we could begin to accept that, players like Jordan Henderson, Thiago Alcantara, perhaps less of a case with Fabinho, he's 29, but these players were going to be slowly sort of drafted out of the first 11. Still a key player. We're talking about the Liverpool captain, given that we've already lost James Milner, who's such an important, figurehead in that dressing room. It would almost be too much losing both in one window, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's actually really bonkers if I think most fans accepted that Milner was probably going to leave this summer, especially with the contract being up. But to have Henderson following him out the door as well, I think would be a massive blow. Even if he's not playing as regularly as some of the newcomers and some of the younger lads. His, like Mika said, the loss of his leadership within the dressing room, particularly off the back of James Milner going, I think would be very difficult to replace. And even in terms of like on the pitch, or like who's going to be like someone there to talk players through games, particularly if they're younger guys, or if they're or the new players. I mean, you have maybe like Van Dijk and Salah who could possibly do that, but you still like to have that midfield general to be a non-pitch influence as well. It's, I think if you said, even, I mean, if you're to pick out, a list of Liverpool players, Nick, which Liverpool player is most likely to go to Saudi Arabia this summer, I think Jordan Henderson, up to about 3 or 4 days ago, would have been near the bottom of that list. Just would have seemed incomprehensible, even with Steven Gerrard over there, that our captain or longest serving player of 12 years would suddenly decide, I'm going to go here for the payday. It still seems mad to think that it could happen.
No, spot on. I mean, we spoke to Neil Jones on Monday, and I think he very much sort of echoed your sentiments there, sort of saying that, if you're looking at sort of the 3 senior Liverpool midfielders, Fabinho is probably the most untouchable of the 3. Jordan Henderson could go, but he's your captain. Thiago, realistically, looked the most likely to depart. We've now got this bizarre situation, Pete, where we're now looking at the other 2 are potentially going. I mean, we've obviously had Dominic King come out and say that, Liverpool, wouldn't be stupid enough to set a price, and not only set a price, but set a price that's so, I mean, frankly offensive. £10 million, even, yes, fine. In his 30s, well into his 30s, 2 years remaining on his contract, probably not going to be as regular a starter as he was sort of last season and the seasons of yore. But, absolutely an offensive figure. I think Sky Sports have since reported that Al-Ettifaq are since so willing to sign Jordan Henderson that they're ready to bid whatever fee is necessary to try and sign him. Now, I don't know about you, Pete, but if I'm Liverpool, I'm saying he's our club captain. There's 2 years remaining on his contract. He's won the lot. Looking at the rest of the transfers that have gone over to the Saudi Pro League, I'm thinking 30, 40 million pounds minimum. And if they can get anything more than that, I think go for it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at what happened with Gerrard before he went, he clearly had chats, turned him down, and they've come back with an offer he obviously couldn't refuse. And it looks like maybe similar has happened with Hendo. Obviously, we heard the rumours pretty much as soon as Gerrard was linked that Hendo might be coming, and they went quiet. And now it's all started up again. Whether that's just because pre-season started and he's now happy to listen to offers and he was on holiday, or whether they came in with an offer and then came back again. I feel like, it's hard to say. You don't know these clubs, do you? They're all brand new in terms of being on the world stage and transfers, like trying to sign a Liverpool captain. But you'd like to think that they seem a little bit impatient and want to get a deal done very quickly. That's what I say. But what happened with Gerrard? So, they're coming in for free, then you're hearing 10 mil, now you're hearing any price you want. So, I think we are in a position to overestimate how much we think Henderson's worth because, as you say, he's our club captain. There's 2 years left on his contract and he's on a decent wage here. It's not like we don't value him as a player, and whether you think he's going to be dropping out of the first team, whatever. When you're in 4 competitions, he's going to be playing most weeks. And we said the Milner role. Milner pretty much played every game towards the end of last season. Admittedly, it was only 5 minutes towards the end of matches, but Henderson's still comfortably a player that could play pretty much every single game for Liverpool, barring injury, especially in the time that we've got 5 subs. And as you say, he's a captain. He's a fantastic player. He definitely is one of the best at covering Trent on that right-hand side if he was part of the midfield. And however Klopp wants to fit him into the new system, he's a massive player in our squad, and I don't think we shouldn't be accepting nothing. 10 mil seems low. Ask for as much as you can get. We did a poll before on Empire the Kop. 3,000 people have voted, and I put like brackets of the prices, and between 20 and 30 mil is what most people have said, which maybe that's what we think he is worth. And then, as you say, you add on an extra 10 and say we want 40 mil. See if you can drop them down and go from there. But if you're trying to sign like a Lavia, who we've seen quite widely reported is going to be £50 million, you'd want to try and get as much of that fee as possible, through Henderson, so that we can replace him straight away. And then we haven't even spoke about Fabinho yet, and I don't want to start going into that one. But then that's a whole other kettle of fish we go on there. But it's the start of the summer. We've just signed that. I definitely can't say his name, George Sidham, the transfer man. And so he's got hopefully have a portfolio of midfielders around the world that can replace them all. And we're in a position where we're already looking in the market. We've seen that Thuram, we've seen that Kone, we've seen lots of other names linked. So you would hope that we've got a list on a whiteboard somewhere in Kirby of midfielders who could come into the club. But, it is a bit scary to be seeing 3, 4, 5 midfielders leaving in the same window and then hoping everyone just clicks straight into gear for next season.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're going to get into how Liverpool react to this situation, assuming that this has come out of the blue, which, it almost feels as if it has. We'll get into that shortly because, there are a number of ways Liverpool can go and sort of view this as a potential opportunity. And at the moment, it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit too much all at once in one day. We mentioned Fabinho. Of course, we have to mention Fabinho. He's our starting number 6 and very much, I think, viewed in a different light to Jordan Henderson, as we were sort of saying, 29 years of age. We don't really have anyone who can kind of cover that position beyond, the youngsters, Stefan Bajcetic, Tyler Morton. Double whammy from David Ornstein this morning again, of course, reporting that Liverpool look to be subject to a 40 million bid from Al-Ittihad for Fabinho. I'm going to touch on one thing first, Mick, because I think the thing that's sort of most pertinent from Jurgen Klopp's perspective, beyond who do we bring in to replace, these lads, the calibre of these lads, is this situation cannot be allowed to rumble on when we go into our training camp in Germany. Jurgen is going to want this nipped in the bud at the earliest opportunity, regardless of, whether it's a yes, I'm going, or yes, I'm staying. Jurgen's going to want an answer as soon as possible, isn't he? And I think it's going to be very much a case of, look, I need, if you're delaying, I think you've already given your answer, and then Liverpool need to start looking at alternatives, really.
Yeah, I think it needs to be like a 1 or 2 days, like 3 days max type thing, because I think our first game's in like next Wednesday. So the pre-season games kick off, and that's where you ideally want everyone in and settled, ready to go. You don't want, and I think that's why you said there, Farrell, about it being out the blue. It obviously very much is, because to fill that void. So it's going to be difficult. Yeah, and just on Fabinho, like he played like his most games ever for us in all competitions last year, which I think says a lot about where we were. Just kind of kept playing him and just kept going, right, go back in, have another game, even though he was just absolutely horrific. He played well towards the end of last season when we kind of switched it up and put Trent in there with him, where he had less space to cover. But yeah, even when you look now, and if none of these rumours were about, you'd be like, well, Fabinho's starting in that role alongside Trent, so he is. In my eyes, he's still our number 1 player in there. Obviously, you've got Bajcetic and stuff, so he's going to have a big season for him. But Fabinho is the main man. If we're going to be losing him, I think 40 million is around what we paid for him. So I think it's a good deal for someone who's 29, but has been playing like before the last bit of last season. He was playing like he was like 34, 35. It was bad to watch at times, but I think it's a good deal. But I feel like it needs to be. It needs to be sorted in a way where, like you said, in a quick manner, where we've got potential people coming in pretty much straight away. And I think like Pete said, like the transfer man, I like that name for him. I was going to call him the transfer man. If he's got a nice little layout of people he wants to bring in, then go for it. But like there's loads of links, and Lavia, Caicedo, etc. So hopefully it'll be a smooth as transition as can be. But I find it hard to believe that both will go. I know it's craziness, but I think as long as if one of them leave, I think we can get over that. I think, but I think losing your starting 6 and your club captain along with Millie and all the other ones that left as well at the end of the season, I think it's quite difficult to do, because these type of processes need to happen over the space of a couple of seasons, ideally, to kind of get players in and get those ready for what's required in a Liverpool side. You need players there that can show them the way rather than the coaches showing it, because it'll be a much smoother transition for those players if there's other players in there that can show them how to do things. So it's the little things like that I worry about, that I just want us to be best prepared for. I mean, Chelsea's in 31 days, so it's coming up on us very, very quickly, and we need to be in the right shape. No, that's what I mean. We need to be in the best shape possible, because we all know last season was horrific. We need stuff sorted, and it's felt like it was going the right way up until this crazy last couple of 24 hours. So hopefully we can get it sorted ASAP.
I mean, the plan before starting this podcast had been to sort of discuss sort of the wider sort of transfer spectrum and, you know, the back line in some depth. But I think we've got plenty more to say, and rightly so, about the midfield and the implications of exits for Fabinho and Jordan Henderson. But fear not, we at Empire of the Kop got in contact with Brighton fan and journalist Charlie Haffenden, who you've seen before on the podcast, lovely chap, to talk about former Brighton Lone Star Levi Colwill, which you can listen to right now. And we are here with the lovely Charlie Haffenden, here again to talk about the former Brighton player, Levi Colwill. We've had some internet problems, so we'll go straight into it. But Charlie, I'm quite excited to speak to you about this player because it's one that's been heavily linked, you know, with Liverpool. And I'm just curious, firstly, what the perspective of yourself and fellow Brighton fans were when Levi first came into the club, because obviously he was brought in as a loan signing, not a permanent signing. Were you aware of what kind of talent that you were getting in at the time, or were you thinking, he'll be more, get a few games here and there, you know, it's good for experience, that kind of thing?
At first, we were very surprised, actually, because we don't really do loan deals at Brighton. Now, we loan people out, but we don't really loan people in because we don't want to be developing rival players. It's essentially always been the thinking behind that. But he came in, and straight away I thought, okay, this is strange. I don't like developing a Chelsea player here, and that's actually what we've done in the end. But it gave us a lot more cover at the left side of the fence after Dan Burns' departure. We were left without that, really. Marc Cucurella going as well. Obviously, have a Stupinian in there. He's fantastic. But as a left-sided centre-half, Cucurella fell in there. Stupinian doesn't really do that. So I was very thankful for that, really, to have a new partner for Lewis Dunk if Adam Webster got injured, which happened on quite a few occasions. Jan-Paul van Hecke is a very good player. He's got a lot of potential, but he's not quite there just yet. So having someone like Colwill there was really useful. It did take him a while to bed in. He didn't quite start games consistently to start with, but when he did, he really started to shine and became a key player for us.
No, you mentioned there, you know, about sort of taking time to sort of bed in. I think his first 90 minutes came sort of midway through the season in November, a 2-1 defeat to Aston Villa. I think that was also his last game for the club as well, again against Villa on the last day of the season. So I'm just curious there, you know, because I think from that first Villa game, he only then missed 10 of the last sort of 24 league games. I think some of that was due to injury. There were a few sort of bench appearances sort of here and there. What were your impressions throughout that period? Was this a player that you sort of instantly thought, you know, from that first 90 minutes, oh my God, this is a talent? Or did he, you know, take some time to grow on you?
A little bit of time, but you could tell straight away that he was very assured for his age, and his time at Huddersfield certainly helped him, and with the England youth setup as well. Hadn't played awful much for Chelsea at all, really. Hadn't really had his chance. We hadn't seen him in the Premier League just yet, and he impressed how good he was, how composed he was on the ball. That was the main talking point, I think, was maybe not his defensive capabilities at first, but how he just fitted in directly into that De Zerbi system, able to play out from the back, dribble forward of the ball as well. And it just got better and better for Levi Colwill as he bedded in further. And then you could see he was beginning to strike relationships with lots of the players alongside him. Him and Dunk in particular worked really well together. Dunk kind of the powerhouse figure behind, the brave one who was blocking everything. Don't get me wrong, Colwill will do a bit of that as well. Of course, he's a very physical defender as well, but his main presence in the team was to bring the ball forwards. Dunk, meanwhile, was kind of more cross-field balls and short passes, I suppose, to the fullbacks. Colwill was focusing on getting into the central midfielders, the likes of Moises Caicedo, McAllister, you'll know too well now, being at Liverpool as well. So that very, very much straight away kind of had a good feeling about him. It did take a little while, though, to work out what his exact role was.
I mean, from a Liverpool perspective, I just want to quickly bring in, because obviously Liverpool are looking for a left-footed centre-half, which, you know, Colwill ticks that box quite neatly. With the new system we're playing, of course, in possession, we tend to revert now to a back three with our left back sort of tucking in. Obviously, Colwill does have experience playing at left back. You know, it could be useful. Do you get the impression that he would have the qualities to fit into that role for Liverpool, with the flexibility of covering for Andy Robertson and potentially Virgil van Dijk, which is, you know, I mean, that's a huge task on its own, of course, never mind about covering another position.
Oh, it's a very big task to say Virgil van Dijk cover. Maybe not quite that extent just yet. He's got the potential to be, don't get me wrong. He's got potential, if not already, one of England's best centre-halves. It feels weird saying that, considering he's just been playing for the under-21 team. But he was bedding into the senior team They just decided it was best for him to have that experience, and of course won the tournament in the end, so it worked out well. But as a left back, we've not really seen him as a left back at Brighton. It was always kind of a Stupinian in that place. He kind of filled in at times during games because it's very fluid, De Zerbi's system, and the fullbacks can quite often tuck in, so it meant that he needed to go out a little bit to cover. But yeah, I don't see why not. He's got the ball carrying capabilities you want from a left back. He's not quite got the pace or the agility of someone like Andy Robertson, so you'd have to take that into mind. But no, I think he's definitely capable of filling in if you need him to.
What's Brighton's current stance on the player? Because, I mean, there have been reports flying around that they quite like the player back permanently from Chelsea. I think quite a number of Premier League sides would like Levi Colwill permanently from Chelsea. Is this a player they've accepted is out of their reach? Or is there some flexibility? Obviously, potentially you get good money in for, Moises Caicedo. I know it's only 35 million for Alexis McAllister, but it very much sort of fits the profile, Brighton are sort of looking for generally. You tend to develop these young players. I think Colwill's obviously perhaps more established than some of the other names that you've brought in previously, but you've got a great track record for making the most of these players.
Yeah, we'll definitely be signing lots more youngsters this summer. But in terms of one out-and-out expensive target, we don't normally have too many. Our record signing before this summer was about £25 million. Adam Webster, actually might have been 23, talking about it. But João Pedro came in 30 million, so that's already a big chunk of the budget gone. But Colwill, Brighton really want to get him. They're not going to give up just yet. Chelsea are saying absolutely not. He's in Pochettino's plans. But the player himself, he's made it quite clear how much he enjoyed his time at Brighton and that he won't sign a new Chelsea contract unless he's guaranteed first-team football. So it's very important to him. Of course, we've got Europe. Chelsea don't. So that's another thing in the immediate future that Colwill can look at. But we've bid 30 and 40 million pounds already, and they've both been rejected. So whether going again for him, I'm not sure. But the big thing that could work out is Moises Caicedo to Chelsea is a big link. They're not willing to spend kind of more than 80 million on him. Brighton won about 100 million. Could there be some bargaining, including Colwill in that? We've bid at 40. They've said no, so they clearly value him more than that. We value Caicedo at 100 million. Could it be a 50 plus Colwill kind of scenario, or 55 plus Colwill? Maybe we'll have to wait and see. It could happen. I think Liverpool will be hoping it doesn't, so they can come in. But the stance at the moment from Chelsea is that absolutely he's not for sale.
It's an ace up your sleeve you'd think you'd have to exploit, wouldn't you? I think obviously you're not in a position here where there is the release clause as you have with McAllister. Brighton can sort of go, well, no, he's absolutely unbelievable. he's worth this much. I think if you think McAllister was worth 60, 70, you'd be absolutely right to charge even more for Moises Caicedo. Just sort of lastly, from a Liverpool perspective, again, you've seen him play. You know what his strengths are, where his weaknesses lie, what his virtues are. What would be your message to Jurgen Klopp and Jörg Schmadtke when it comes to this player?
He's very kind of versatile. He's surprisingly good at dribbling forward, as I've mentioned. You think of centre-backs in the modern day as someone who is capable of doing that, but he really is so good. One of the best in the league, I'd say, at bringing the ball forward into midfield. And he looks just so comfortable when the pressure is applied to him. You can say the same about Caicedo and McAllister. That's why it works so well. Dunk as well, but Colwill, I think I'd say, is better at kind of making a quick turn, a bit more agile. I think it's difficult to pinpoint really because he's just so well-rounded. I think that's probably the point I'd say to Jurgen Klopp is I would bring him in because of how well-rounded he is and how comfortable he is at this age already, how he's definitely not hit his ceiling at all yet, and he can be nurtured into being kind of whatever you want him to be, I think, Levi Colwill. So a very exciting player. I hope he doesn't go to Anfield. I hope he comes to the Amex Stadium instead. But a very exciting one I think needs to be linked with as well. And the fact that Brighton are competing with Liverpool for a player is quite extraordinary from my perspective.
No, absolutely, and well deserved. I think Brighton, you played some absolutely astonishing football last term. Absolutely deserved to be in Europe, and hopefully can use it as a launch pad for even greater heights to scale this coming term. I mean, what you've been saying about Colwill, a well-rounded player, which is astonishing, given this as a player, not even in the England sort of men's senior team. He was playing in the under-21s, which, of course, what won the tournament, didn't they, along with Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott to Liverpool. So I'd be very curious to see about where he ends up this summer. It sounds like a very, very exciting talent and exactly the kind of player that both Liverpool and Brighton now should be competing for in a permanent move. Charlie, thank you very much for your time. And while you're here, you've been working with the Birmingham World. Any exciting updates? Any plans, concert plans coming up forward that you'd like to share?
I think kind of mainly transfer news at the moment and working ahead to the new season. It's only a few weeks away now. I'll be heading off to some pre-season games covering Aston Villa. Very excited for that. And also excited in mid-August that Brighton are coming to town to play against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So I'll be there for that one as well. So keep an eye on the Birmingham World website for that. And also keep an eye on my Twitter at JournoHaff. We're trying to keep up to date with the Moises Caicedo news. I've been speaking to his agent quite consistently. Nothing's happening at the moment, really. So I'll bring any updates as and when I get them.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us again, Charlie.
No worries.
And we're back with the main chat, the big chat, the worrying chat, really, about Jordan Henderson, Fabinho, and Saudi interest. We were saying before, this does feel like it's sort of come out a bit, the blue a bit, for us at Liam. And I think, if it's the case that Liverpool are going to lose these players, I almost think, particularly with Fabinho, they cannot sanction that exit without some guarantee that a top first choice number 6, of the ilk of a Declan Rice, of the ilk of an Aurelien Tchouameni, wants to come in. I think we've seen plenty about Romeo Lavia, and I think this is a player that with a genuinely high talent ceiling. But the plan was very much, you bring him in, he learns the ropes from Fabinho, potentially takes over that position maybe in a year's time. If Fabinho goes and you bring in Romeo Lavia, and you're saying, have fun, Bajcetic, have fun, Lavia. You're both 19 years of age, you're both still developing. That's just not a tenable situation for Liverpool, is it?
No, absolutely not. I know from a pragmatic point of view, you might be thinking Fabinho was poor for the bulk of last season, 29 now, 40 million offer. In those terms, you might think of it and say, yeah, fair enough. But as you say, in the wider context of having no ready-made alternative really in place, Bajcetic, as good as he was last season, as you say, he's not. You can't really see him being ready to step up to that on a regular basis this time, and particularly after such a long layoff as well. So I would hope that if Liverpool are happy enough to sanction Fabinho's departure, that they in the background have more or less guarantees that somebody will come in straight, that a ready-made replacement like a Tchouameni will come in straight away. And maybe that just hasn't come out into the public domain yet, because like kind of Nick touched upon, if all the optimism of getting McAllister and getting Szoboszlai in, if Henderson and Fabinho were to go in the next few days, I kind of feel like all of that optimism would just be evaporated, and we'd all be back where we started on the final day of last season.
No, absolutely spot on. And I think in that sort of vein of thought, Pete, are Liverpool in a position where they can even... I mean, we've seen 40 million. That's the reported bid for potentially that has been prepared for Fabinho. But I think if we're talking, rightfully maybe 30 to 40 for Henderson, well, surely Liverpool are thinking, well, Fabinho's 29. Yes, he had about absolute dog ears of a season last year, but we're still talking about, a player who on his day is one of the absolute top holding midfielders in world football, never mind the Premier League. I'm thinking excess of 50 million. This is the Saudi Pro League. You're throwing money about for players who are comparatively of a lesser quality here. What should Liverpool be charging realistically for Fabinho? And B, can Liverpool, if they do sell Jordan Henderson, even afford to also lose Fabinho in the same window? Because you're talking about a window where you've effectively completely replaced your entire midfield three. It's not a case of, right, we've got McAllister, we've got Szoboszlai, but we've got Fabinho there, sort of holding the fort. That's a gamble too far, perhaps?
Yeah, well, it's scary. If we'd have said, that season where we nearly win the quadruple at the end of that, if we'd have said, starting not next season, the season after, well, you're not going to have, Firmino, Milner, Henderson, possibly Fabinho, and everyone else will have Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, just Mane, all those people. So they're all going to go in the space of one full season between that. Obviously, we know what happened last year, but that is too much change, I think, isn't it? You know, we said maybe people have been criticising Klopp last season for not changing enough, and that is a lot of change in the space of one season. And then at the end of next season, I think we're pretty much already looking like we're going to say bye to Matip and Thiago. And of course, you know, the team needs to change. And we said it was an aging squad, and people are going to start leaving. But it feels like too much in one go. And you know, probably summers in the past we've gone in worried about, will this player leave, will that player leave, and this one felt like the summer where, you know, we're not worried about anything. No one's going to go other than the people who left on a free transfer, which we knew probably 6, 8, 12 months ago they were probably going to leave anyway. You know, the only people who will be leaving would have to have a massive offer for them. And as you say, you know, the Saudi Pro League are coming in, and, you know, I don't want to, whatever you think of their country, you don't want to, their level of football is a lot lower than the Premier League. That's not a controversial statement to say. So if they want to come and get your players, you should be asking for a lot more money. And maybe that goes against, you know, if a Premier League team comes and maybe you say that's probably worse for us. But, you know, if Arsenal came in, offered 40 mil for Fabinho and his head was turned, you kind of think, okay, that's probably not too far off a fair price. But when you've got the Saudi Pro League, you know, pretty much got blank checkbooks to come and sign players, then yeah, we should be looking for more. As you say, they've offered nothing up to 10 mil for Hendo. I'd be wanting 30, 40 mil just to say you go in high. And with Fabinho, same, when we're saying 50, 60 mil, you know, how'd you go and get a ready-made first team starting number 6 to go and play in our team? You know, it's not going to come cheap. We got McAllister for 35 million, but we're not going to be able to replace Fabinho for that price. And you know, we said before there that, you know, we want someone like Tchouameni or any other name we've been linked with in the past who hasn't arrived. But who is that number 6 that's out there on the market? The only one, probably Declan Rice, and maybe doesn't even play fully holding all the time. He's a bit more box to box, but he was probably the only person on the market this summer that I know of that we could definitely go on and signed. And again, he was over 100 mil. I'm not saying Fabinho should be that, but if Saudi Arabia are coming in and we know the money they've got, we need a lot more off them to be able to go and replace the likes of, if we do lose them, Henderson, Fabinho, Milner. So just a bit worried. It's a lot of change in one summer, and so, you know, therefore I'd be asking for a lot more money. And you give those stats that we said then, it's 31 days till we play Chelsea. It's less than a week till our first friendly. You know, we can't be having this going on and on. As Mick said, we need to get this sorted quickly. So if you want him, this is the price you've got to pay. If not, see you later, and we can carry on planning for the rest of the summer.
I think Liverpool definitely need to take a firm stance in, and not only with the clubs that are coming in with the offers, but also, you know, with the players. There needs to be an answer. This cannot, you know, we've already seen last season's pre-season was poorly organised. We can't have yet another pre-season, you know, have this hanging over us, you know. It just, I mean, I think it would absolutely infuriate Klopp and the coaches, you know, having yet another issue before a season where we need improvement. We need to get back into the Champions League. And this is a squad that's certainly more than capable of doing that. I think, you know, hopefully getting a couple more sort of players, potentially looking at more of that really. I mean, Mick, where do Liverpool look to go here? We'll sort of start off with Jordan Henderson. You know, you lose your captain. You know, we've brought in Dominic Szoboszlai, who's probably, you know, is going to fit neatly into that right centre midfield role. You know, he's athletic. You know, we saw him absolutely smash the lactate tests. I think, Pete, you did an article earlier about sort of Trent sort of almost his jaw on the floor. You know, he's saying, 20.2 or something, which apparently is a pretty good score for the lactate. So we've got a good player. It's about whether he'll fit into that new climate of the Premier League. But then you suddenly look at the right centre midfield, that depth, and it's no longer Szoboszlai, Henderson, and Elliott. It's just Szoboszlai and Elliott. And I don't know. Do we need to worry about that? Are you worried about that personally?
Yeah, I suppose it comes into the thinking, because up until yesterday we were just assuming that Hendo was going to definitely stay after coming back more ripped than ever. Yeah, and I think most of the names we've been linked with, the likes of like Caicedo and Lavia, I suppose they're more 6 players. I mean, we've mentioned Bacchetta, you can do it. Fabinho goes, then those two come definitely into the question about which of those do you get. And yeah, I know, like Pete said, we've been linked with likes of Kone and Thuram, Gravenberch, and all those players. And I suppose they were all on the proviso that we keep the players we've got, and maybe if one leaves. And I think, like you said before, Farrell, like if Thiago would have left, I suppose technically we could have then went in and got someone else. But then if you're going in and losing your right forward box player in the new system, that is difficult, especially with, like you said, they've got Szoboszlai and Elliott, and I think between those two, it's decent. But with the amount of games we'll be playing next year, especially with Europa League and the cup competitions and stuff, I think it's going to be difficult to kind of get those rotations in at the right times. Like I said, with the 5 subs as well, it's going to be hard to have the right amount of players. But I think it's difficult to. I'm sure they've got a list. I think the list might be getting steadily longer in the light of what's came out in the last day or so. But I'm sure we'll be able to find. Even if it's like a youngish player who can come in and kind of, I suppose, vie for Elliott, because I imagine it'll be Szoboszlai. I think we'll all agree on that it'll be Szoboszlai. I don't know if he'll start the season, but in for the long term, he's the guy who's going to be there. And then you've got an Elliott and someone else who can come in and kind of, I suppose, mop up those other minutes that we need to have covered. So yeah, it's I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest, but that's why they get paid the money to find the players that we need. But there's loads of players in world footy that can come in and will be happy to come to Liverpool. We've seen that already with McAllister and Szoboszlai. They're still willing to come to Liverpool, even though we're not in the Champions League. So that's not an issue. It's whether we can get players that can buy into the can buy into what we're trying to do and to kind of align with what we're trying to achieve. Especially like we've all said, like this season is absolutely vital, and we need players that are going to come in and have the right work ethic and are going to be good people as well. I think that's a massive thing that Klopp looks for. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's up to them to find it, I suppose, and hopefully we found the right one.
No, just to break some sort of fresh news, Paul Joyce at the Times has reported that Al-Ittihad, the fact that Al-Ittihad are set to make an offer for Fabinho indicates the player is willing to make the move. Indicates doesn't necessarily guarantee, but coming from a reporter as respectable as Joyce, Liam, I think that's a little troubling. It's suddenly starting to look a bit worrying for Liverpool that they might actually lose their the two senior midfielders that we didn't expect Liverpool to lose in this window, which leaves me with a difficult question for you to answer, really, which is where do Liverpool go from here when it comes to the 6? Because, we've already discussed, I don't think it's safe for Liverpool to go into it. In fact, no, forget it. It's not safe for Liverpool to go into a season with 2 19-year-olds if Liverpool go for a player like Lavia and say, have at it, see what happens. Liverpool need seniority, they need experience, they need reliability. Pete mentioned Declan Rice. Obviously that's a move that Arsenal looks set to complete, but perhaps there's a window of late opportunity for Liverpool to exploit there. Perhaps if Liverpool get the money that they're looking for from those 2 transfers, perhaps a lot of perhaps here, but that's all we seem to have at the moment.
Yeah, I just think it's staggering that they would. If it isn't the case that they would allow Fabinho to leave without having, first of all, a firm, trusted backup plan in place, and secondly, a confidence that this backup plan will come off. I know that Lavia, as you're saying, even though he seems a good prospect, he's probably still that bit too raw to being trusted with a full season of being a starting number 6. I know Tchouameni has been mentioned a few times, so he's personally someone that I would definitely love to see coming in there, but it just partly doesn't seem overly realistic. And yeah, Rice has been mentioned as well. He's very much primarily proven, and he would be someone that could slot in there straight away, effortlessly, that we know we could trust. But again, you're coming back to about 100 million. Is that something that I feel that it will realistically lash out for one player? I don't know. So again, unless Horst Schmadtke and Jurgen Klopp have something in mind that just we don't know about yet, yeah, it is. It seems to me crazy that they're willing to let Fabinho off without having an obvious backup plan in place.
No, spot on. I think, the one thing perhaps we haven't touched upon is that Fabinho's contract doesn't run out until 2026. If I'm Liverpool, you're sure if you're Jurgen Klopp, you're Jörg Schmatke, you're surely saying, stay with us a year, so we can manoeuvre this window a bit more carefully because we're already losing our captain potentially if he goes over to Saudi and joins Steven Gerrard's outfit. Stay with us a year. We're going to bring in this young lad who's, we see a vision for him. We see him coming in, learning from you, perhaps taking the ropes. I think what's interesting about Lavia is everyone associated with the club. I think we had a chat also with Athletic Southampton reporter Jacob Tanswell, and he was absolutely convinced. He put it to me that if you play Romeo Lavia, he will replace Fabinho within, I think it was something insane, that a ridiculously short amount of time. I think it was 4 weeks, 4 months, probably 4 months. I'll have to check that. But he was absolutely convinced Romeo Lavia would be our first choice number 6 by the end of the season at the absolute latest. So I would be saying, Pete, to Fabinho, stay with us a year, help us navigate this window a bit better, because I think Liverpool are in a position surely to demand to say, well, unless we can bring in a Tchouaméni, a Rice, it's just not worth the upheaval. We don't have the flexibility. Surely we need Champions League football. It's one thing saying we've bought well this summer. It's another thing to go, right, this is a brand new midfield that we're playing in the Premier League, and we're going to be expecting to compete with the likes of Manchester City, Arsenal, now Newcastle, Manchester United, potentially Chelsea under Mauricio Pochettino. We're not quite sure how that's going to work out. They've sold a lot of players. It's too much demand. How would you approach this?
Well, as Mick said, thankfully we don't have to. It's they hire the other people to do those jobs, but I think if you look at Hendo and Fabinho as well, as much as they're getting offered blank checkbooks for money to go and play there, I still don't think if Liverpool said no, they'd be the type to throw the toys out the pram and down tools next season. I thought definitely Henderson, and I find it unlikely Fabinho would. So, we still are in a powerful position. Just because your player wants to go, as I said, I don't think it means that they're necessarily it's be all and end all. I think you can still speak to them. Klopp's got to be having those conversations. If the news is coming out to us, it must be discussed amongst the coaches at the very least, and you'd hope that Klopp's talking with the players. But it just seems unlikely we can get rid of both of them. I say it's too much change in one go. Klopp was criticised, as I said, and you look back to the Shankly era when he was criticised for not changing his team, but he had all the people that took over. Most of them were in the reserves and were already part of the club, and then when the first team players, when they went in the reserves and they were still there, so that's still camaraderie and team play. The team ethic was still there for everyone. If you're losing massive members of the dressing room, like we already have, even if these two don't go, and as I said before, like people have been there for years, like Firmino, Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, proper vocal people, popular people in the dressing room. You add on Henderson, add on Fabinho, people will start questioning themselves. A lot of the players have been there 5-6 years now, and if this season's not going well come January, the fact that loads of their mates have just gone could make them start thinking, saying to their agent, to have a look if Saudi are happy to offer me some mad money because I've won every trophy at Liverpool and all my mates have gone, so what's the point to staying? I know that might seem like a stupid way of looking at it, but I just think, we're getting to a point where too much change can be very harmful for us, and the season's coming up quickly. As far as I see it, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of been the only one, but I hadn't really heard of Dominic Szoboszlai before we signed him. So I'm sure there are people out there that I've never heard of still that can come in and play and we can get for a good deal. But, it's risky and it's scary to start putting your faith in people that I'm sure they would have researched. I'm sure they'll know who will and will be able to fit our system. But to put all your faith into new people, most of them are going to be from abroad, I would guess, again. So it's going to be getting them settled down, learn the language or stuff like that. We're all hoping with Darwin Núñez that he can kick on this season. As much as he was very far from terrible last year, he's definitely took some settling in and trying to learn the language and stuff. It's not what we wanted. We wanted this season to be the one where we tweaked it a little bit, attacked it and got back up the league. And we can't really afford to have another rebuild season and see what happens the year after that, because there's going to be more people who go next season. We're going to be chasing our tails instead of trying to be in a strong position where we should be competing for the league title and the biggest silverware on offer. And we've got the players in our squad to do that. But if you keep changing stuff too much, it could backfire quite badly on us.
No, absolutely. I don't think it's a stupid point to make either about potentially others sort of following suit. I think it's the point has already been made. If the Saudi Pro League can snap up Liverpool's captain, virtually any player, isn't untouchable really. When you're looking at the kind of the figures that are being thrown out there, £700,000 a week. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Let's be honest. But we'll have to just keep an eye on the situation. Hope that Liverpool will have a plan up their sleeve. We know that their short list extends for miles, so they'll have options ready. It's just a question of who can come in. I think Liverpool want to play this smart, of course, and as you've rightly pointed out, Pete, as everyone sort of rightly pointed out, it's a lot of experience all to lose in one window. So fingers crossed, we're not losing too many. Just before we sign off, Mick, it's been a while since we've had you here on the Empire of the Kop podcast. Just like to take a moment just to tell us what you've been up to and what you've got planned in the pipeline, maybe with the Kop podcast.
Yeah, nice one. It has been a while. I think I was the fifth Beatle for a bit, weren't I? And then I've got jibbed off. Only messing. No, it's got jibbed off for better people. No, it's nice to be back on. Just kind of ticking over. Like I said, yesterday I was just doing a chat about like lactate tests and stuff, and then all of a sudden Hendo news comes out, and it's like turns a bit crazy. But it's just about creating as much as you can. I'm trying to get a few people on. I reached out to Adam Bogdan because obviously the Szoboszlai stuff. I'm not sure if you guys have done the same, but he replied and was really nice and said, I've had that many offers, but I can't do it this week. So when the season starts, so we're going to have a little chat with him. Hopefully if he plays against Chelsea and hopefully scores a worldie, then it'll be an even better chat. But just little bits like that. I might try and do one with, because I know our first game next week's against, I can never pronounce this team's name, Carl Rouge. I don't know, I probably butchered that. But Sean Dundee, anyway, used to play for them. So I've got a little chat with him lined up just to discuss what they're all about and stuff. And I know it's only a pre-season friendly, but we've done a chat with them before and it was really good. So I'm going to do another one with them. And just little things like that. I think it's always looking for an angle, isn't it? Trying to figure out the best way to do things. But just trying to do little bits like that. And that's pretty much it, really.
No, that sounds absolutely fantastic. There's a few difficult ones to pronounce there. I think Liverpool fans have had a bit of a challenging few weeks in that regard. Szoboszlai continues to. I listen to other podcasts, and it's the variation in pronunciation is absolutely incredible. But yes, brilliant. I mean, tell us, mate, where we can find all of this good stuff that's coming up.
So we're just on audio these days. So we just search as Kop Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm sure if you're on there, the link tree's on there to links to Spotify, Apple, all of them basically. They're all on there. So if you want to go and have a look at them. And I think that's pretty much it. We might go back into YouTube at some point in the future, but kind of just enjoying doing the having me dressing gown on, sitting on the couch with audio only, where no one can see me. Having to get myself prim and proper for stuff like this is I don't mind it now and again, but I do enjoy just it being audio because I can just chill and that. But at Kop Podcast, that's where you can find us. And there's done loads in the past with like Carragher, done one recently with Carragher talking about like Darwin Núñez and stuff. There's a few on there like Momo Sissoko, they're pretty old them ones now. Like the Carragher one's pretty new, and hopefully get a few more over the line soonish as well. It's always good to get people on like that, because I think when all it takes is one retweet and it's 2.2 million people I think follow Carragher, so that one went a bit mad. So it's hard work getting people on, but I think it's always the benefits and the rewards of it are always really good to see, and the feedback we've had on the recent shows have been amazing. So it's gone well. Nice one.
Absolutely, and it's always worth it. And for what it's worth, Mick, you look fantastic. So don't worry, get back on the YouTube. We've all missed you off your face. But yes, I've not been alone here.
It took an hour to get ready. I had to go and put my face on before I get on.
It's hard work, isn't it? It's hard work, isn't it? No, but I've not been alone here today on the Empire of the Kop podcast. We've had our fellow Empire lads here. We've had Pete. You can follow him on Twitter at Peter Kenny Jones, and of course a debut for Liam Toher. You can also follow him on Twitter at Liam Toher 88. I believe, is your tagline on Twitter. I've been your host, Farrell Keeling. This has been a rather interesting podcast. I think we'll be all eagerly awaiting the results of bids for Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, and hoping that at least one of them remains at the club come the end of the transfer window. For now, this has been the Empire of the Kop podcast. Take care.